It wasn't a fly this time. Uh, how is again? We're back in the woods. I didn't make any videos this week because I was over in Wales, and it's like the second time this year I've been in Wales, and I've become fascinated by that country. The other time I was visiting megaliths, and I got some great footage there, which will be turned into videos for Beyond Room 313, and also a very special treat at this time because the weather was so good. I made a quick dash over to Portmeirion. Those of you who are fans of the TV show The Prisoner, which I am a bit of a geek myself, I'll be doing a film on The Prisoner and my interpretations of what it means, again for the film Beyond, for the channel Beyond Room 313. As I know you're very much enjoying my film reviews or my film analysis there, of in terms of the occult analysis, and I'll be doing one on the Prisoner TV show, maybe a series of them. We'll see what happens. But I wanted to get good footage of Portmeirion because it looks exactly as it looked in the Prisoner TV show. The village is still the same, it's still there. And I got there early in the morning, a beautiful sunshine. And so it's a really valuable footage that'll serve me well in terms of that subject for a while. And it was also felt like a big kid there. It was really great fun. I really I was like a little kid there. It was just magic to be there among those scenes that had not changed since Patrick McGowan was there in 1966. And it's a very important TV show that it doesn't get enough. Well, it does get a lot, but in other ways, I think there's a lot of. On one side, you have people obsessed with the idea in terms of a mainstream view, and on the other side, you've got a kind of truther thing that talks about it being about truth of things. It's kind of there's elements of truth to both of those things, but there's also another side to it that I want to explore. And in many ways, the Prisoner TV show has come of age because it ties in nicely with the whole thing of the hauntology and folk horror revival. That's all the rage right now. This month's 40 and Times is a thing on the whole folk horror revival thing, and I'll be doing one or maybe a series of talks with Greg Moffat on legalized freedom, on the hauntology ideas, very similar to my own ideas of the environomicon, that the actual landscape is the rural and the urban landscape contains mystical elements that kind of have a kind of a buffering shamanic effect that brings us there, not through trances or through shamanic experiences, but gives us a kind of a glimpse or a taste through things like culture, TV shows, movies like The Wicker Man, Children of the Stones TV shows, Lovecraft, this kind of thing, and even things like role-playing games and electronic music and pop music, all ties into that. I was just like playing, like I have a playlist of songs I use just to sort of bring myself into that kind of sense while I'm walking through this countryside. And there are things like Fields of the Nephilim, and even songs you wouldn't expect, like It's No Good by Depeche Mode, and lots of electronic music. There's something about that electronic music that adds very much to this hauntology idea. Now, speaking of which, one of the things I came across in Wales was the only known Minerva shrine left in Europe, I believe. And it's not actually, it's in England, in Chester, in a park. And the statue is still there. It's still recognizable with the L beside it. And Minerva is Athena. Minerva is the Roman version of Athena. And like Vulcan, she's one of these goddesses that the Celts took well to. They incorporated into their own pantheon because she's the goddess of magic, the goddess of skills and crafts of war. But the Celts kind of transposed her into holy wells as well, through their own veneration. So she's a very interesting goddess. But more importantly, Athena and Minerva is now on the rise. And this became apparent to me last autumn, around September. I started to develop an owl consciousness. By that I mean I saw a wild owl. Very rare to see wild owls in Ireland, especially this part of Ireland, maybe in the East Coast, but not this part. You do see them a lot on the East Coast, but not here. I was seeing owls everywhere. The archetype was coming out very strong. and it had several meanings in my life, but one was the rise of the Athena archetype. The Athena archetype seems to be everywhere now. If you look at my social media feed, there's constant images of classical artworks or references to Athena or Minerva, same goddess. And these archetypes don't. I would say Cthulhu was a big one in recent years, and that's kind of waning. And now it seems, I can't believe I'm sipping my Coke up. It's nearly July and I'm bleeding freezing. And now it's Athena and Minerva is taking over the cultural zeitgeist. And we've just heard that the Parthenon is going to be partially restored in Athens, named after Athena, and that was a temple of Athena. And yes, something is happening, and pay attention. You're going to see a lot of things to do with owls and Athena, and to a lesser extent Minerva, because although Minerva is the Roman realization of Athena, it's still the name Athena still carries a magical power that Minerva doesn't anymore. I'd imagine in Celtic Britain, Minerva was very strong, but not Athena. But because obviously the Greeks didn't take over there. But it's why do these things happen? Why do they come along? Why do they generate these archetypes generate? And they generate for a reason. I think the reason that this one is happening is because those of us who are aware of it can see certain things on the horizon that are kind of imminent. And they're often portents of danger. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to be destroyed, you're going to be wiped out. You see, one of the things to do with auguries in the ancient classical world was to take note of these signs because they could save your ass. Before Christians, everything was not seen as the end of the world. This whole idea of like, whoa, the end is nigh, that directly comes from the book of Revelations, the end of the earth. That did not exist before that. If portents were potentials, things that may happen or they will happen, but how you respond to them is really the ultimate thing that how you deal with it is how you will respond to it. So you have oncoming changes in society and or culture or the economy or whatever, but it's not so much you're going to be destroyed by it. This whole thing, you see, this is one of the reasons that the whole truth movement is horribly Christian, is that so many of these idiot truthers, they're waiting for something to happen. In other words, they're waiting for the book of Revelations. That's what they're waiting for, because ultimately that's an entirely Christian dynamic. So it's always the end of the world, the end of something, the economic collapse and all this. Not that to say these things won't happen, but it's how you respond to them as happens. I mean, I've got a lot of respect for preppers and survivalists. You know, they're the smart ones in the world today. Now, I'll tell you what's going to happen. The economy will fail because the economy we have now is an economy of nothing, right? We live in a world of complete madness right now. I was reading an article in the Guardian, which is like basically a mental hospital. That's basically what the Guardian is. And they were saying that all space exploration must be halted until they can eliminate homophobia, racism and sexism in space. And that was a serious article. Not the technical aspects of it, not the danger of it, not the challenges and the potential discoveries, but these maniacs, these snowflakes and these SJWs and all these types, these millennials, it's not only good enough that they've imposed their unnatural view of reality on this planet, and I'm not putting down like gays or anything like that. It's not that. I'm just talking about like how we respond, how we deal with these things. The purpose of life is not to be a political enforcer. It's just like their attitude towards the environment. They know nothing about trees and sky and land and animals. They're a political enforcement in terms of their climate change thing. And they're enforcing that now in space exploration. Now this is like, when you think how it was, let's say Jack Parsons, back in the 1930s, developing rockets, using, remember the OTO, using both magic and everything, magic and science together was the same thing really, in order to build the rockets that would develop the rocket fuel that would eventually get to the moon before he was murdered by the FBI for helping the Israelis. And you compare that to The Guardian this week demanding that people stop space exploration until we have political correctness in space. And that's been in the works for a long time. You look at bullshit like Star Trek The Next Generation, that's all political crap. And they've grown up with that and think that's how space is. That's how it is. And this is what I think this Athena thing is coming. And it's also probably ties in with the Kali Yuga thing. The destruction, by the destruction of the baby man. And the millennials are like this. And you meet these couples where they work in some stupid job in IT or in advertising usually, where they have their little playthings at work and they can play guitar at work and they can lounge about and they don't have to sit and they think it's great and they get paid this huge salary. And yet neither one of them could fucking fix put a fuse in a plug, or use a screwdriver, or hang a picture. Now, what are they going to do when the economy collapses? The first things are jobs like that: marketing, advertising, public relations. They're all the first to go, and so many of them work in that. If you were in that industry and you were to be aware of archetypes like this Athena archetype, what you do is you learn how to have skills, but they don't do that. You're going to have mass suicides. I'm telling you, it's clear as day to me, especially 2020 on. It's going to be a mass cull, and a lot of it is deliberate because they've created a generation of imbeciles who can't do nothing. For the most part, there's always kids who can do things, but in general, and they have these stupid jobs that are not necessary, and they will be the first to go. And we'll have a flip in society where people who could do things like tradesmen and tradeswomen will have all the economic advantage, but that will only last as long as the money is there. And once that money is gone, well, they'll still have the skills to survive. They can fix their own homes, they can build things, they can make things, they'll survive somehow. But these millennials and snowflakes have been deliberately engineered to be weaklings for that purpose, to make them completely dependent on corporations and the corporate system. But that system will not last. That will not last. And this is what this energy, this Athena energy, is telling us. That like I always say to you when I tell you about these archetypes, I always say, this fucking hair is gone. I washed my hair with this is the cheapest shampoo this morning, and it's like going like a fucking like a granny's bush. But it's like that's the thing. Pay attention. I'm always saying it to you. Pay attention to what's going on in terms of these forces. And the owl Athena has been very strong for a while, and it seems to be replacing Cthulhu. If you read my book Sorcery, I talk about how, well, Cthulhu did manifest in the minds of everyone, and the manifestation was these snowflakes who cry because they don't get their way. They're emotional imbeciles, and blame everybody for every problem they have, and cannot have a debate or a disagreement with people. They have to automatically hate them, and they're about to be culled. They will not survive. They will not make it, and that's just the way it is. I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm just saying that's just the way it is. The ability to see in the dark. Now, Minerva is also and Athena is also the goddess of magic. This is where things like, I had so many people say, ever since they got into my work on magic and druids and that stuff, they don't care about politics anymore. And that's one of the nicest compliments you could pay me. Only observe politics and the zeitgeist of the cultural dynamic as an observer, in the same way an owl would, in the same way a god would. The classical gods, particularly the gods and goddesses like Lucifer and his sister Diana, they did not involve themselves in human social affairs. They observed from a distance, but they did not they did not have a social consciousness in terms of how they affected societies, their societies they ruled over, or they were venerated within, in terms of involvement in that society. And that's another thing. The classical gods are rising. Gods and goddesses are rising again. You finally got the rehabilitation of Lucifer through people like me to his correct position and status as a classical Roman god. Lucifer and Phosphorus. You have the growth of Athena and Minerva, the resurgence of those archetypes. These classical gods are coming back for a reason. And I believe, and you'll often see, this is another one, you'll often see owls at the end of bookends. You know, there's like bookends they have like years ago, and they'd have an owl on this end now and that end, facing different directions. We're at the bookend of the Christian world. It's coming, the Christian world is coming to an end. The classical gods and goddesses were here at the beginning of the Christian world and the collapse of the classical pagan world. And they're restoring again on the other end, because like I always say, you cannot keep a good archetype down. And what's this? We are very privileged to be living in this time. Very privileged. Any of you who are like going on, oh, it's a sucky time to be alive, and you're getting the show, the greatest show on earth in your lifetime, and the ability to be able to understand it, thanks to the internet and thanks to gobshites like me who would have never got a voice to reach people, and others, I'm not the only one, there's others involved, who would have never got the voice to reach people, and you would have always been dependent on the academics and the academic view of things. You would have always been dependent on that. And what do we have now? We have people like me and yourselves and others who are actually saying, hold on, it's not like the college professors tell you it is. It's not like that. And we're at the end of that. We're coming into an age of the new Bohemians, the new barbarians, and that's a noble thing. You always remember that statue of the end of the barbarian world was that statue that shows the death of Vercingetorix, the leader of the Gauls. Sorry, it's not. It's called the Dying Gaul, but it's kind of like a homage to Vercingetorix, although he died in a Roman prison. On the battlefield, a tremendous nobility in that. The dying Celt, the dying Gaul. Well, now he's resurrecting. He's resurrecting again, and this will take place on the end of the end of this current nonsense, this madness. Like when I think we read papers like The Guardian, this madness, and it'll be healthier. It'll be a much healthier society. Now, it won't be like a Christian society where we'll have 2.5 kids and apple pie and mom. It won't be anything like that. It'll be the same, except there'll be more freedom. There'll be more freedom. People are saying that freedom is collapsing, but it's only collapsing with those who allow themselves to be subjugated to oppression. You see, that's another thing the owl sees in the dark. The owl sees not only the oppression, but the means to escape it. And there's numerous means to escape it. The most important one of all is your consciousness. Is that the means to escape via your consciousness, how you relate to things, how you think about things. And that brings us back once again to number 6 in The Prisoner. It's the same thing. The problem was he's a prisoner of his consciousness. And that's really what that show is about. And of course I'll be extrapolating further on that and beyond room 313. So you pay attention. I can guarantee you your news feeds are going to be full of lots of images of owls, Athena and Minerva, and that's happening for a reason. And like I always say, you can't keep a good archetype down, and more importantly, pay attention. See yous.